Right, so what I've got here is the shell, the core out of an Abbas Plus, and I just wanted to show you Abbas's rather laughable attempt at lockpicking defence, and this is their latest revision of the lock. Now on the plus side for Abbas, they have made many revisions over the years on trying to make their lock more pick-proof. From the early days of the granite in the 90s all the way up to now, they've made lots and lots of small changes to try and make the lock more pick resistant. That included putting butterfly discs in the front, then the rear, then both, making the tension disc random, putting false gates in. They've done lots of things over the years, but this is their latest effort. So I'm hoping you can see here at the top of the lock, I've taken the sidebar out. This is where the sidebar would normally live. So if we put the key in, oh, come on, focus, you should be able to see that everything lines up. See? So when the key's turned, everything lines up and the sidebar can fall in. But interestingly, you see this gate, this one here. So this is a 1 cut on an Abbas, which would be a 5 cut on an Abloy. Basically, it's the one that normally doesn't get moved at all. But as I turn the key, you can see it does move, maybe 10 or 15 degrees. It's not much. So in the old Abbas locks, this one you'd be able to see its gate from the get-go, and the key wouldn't touch it at all. And you can see the cut on the key is indeed one of the 90-degree cuts. So it's focus. You can see it's this one here. So what's going on here? This is Abbas's latest anti-lockpick defence. So if we can see that when we put the key in, it doesn't actually go 90 degrees. When you get to 90, which is there, not everything's lined up. It actually goes about 105 degrees. Whereas all the locks before this, you only used to go 90 degrees. So that extra 15 degrees is what's making up for that little bit of movement. So why have we got an extra 15 degrees of movement on the discs? So even the driving zero discs, you have to turn the key 105 degrees before they'll get picked up. And the reason for that is, if I can just get one of the washers out, they've broken one of the cardinal rules of disc detainer locks. And that is that the washer, that's what this is here, if I just place the washer there, oops, let's pop it there. So you can see the washer, this is where the sidebar lives here. You can see there's an extra bit cut out, and the little teeth here and here, which is what normally house it firmly in its place, you can see there's a little bit of extra cut out there as well. So the washers are normally there so that one disc can move without its neighbouring disc being annoyed. So you can turn one disc a full 90 degrees and the disc next to it, which might be a disc that isn't meant to move at all, doesn't get disturbed. So they ensure independent rotation of the discs. And this has always been the case on every disc detainer lock Abloy have done, and everyone ever. But Abbas have broke the rules here with this lock. They've made it so these extra little cutout bits make that washer wobble just a tiny bit. It's about 15 degrees that it wobbles. And that is what is accounting for the extra movement. Now it's fine, it doesn't have any detrimental effect when you're using the key, because the key is only being rotated in one direction. So that extra 15 degrees movement is the same for all the discs. So everything moves exactly the same in relation to each other, just as it did before. But why have this extra movement then, if it If it doesn't have much effect on the operation of the key, then what's it for? Now this is in the patent, and if I hadn't have read the patent I wouldn't have known about this, because from a picking perspective, well, it's completely useless, and I'll show you why. So the idea is, if I put the lock back together, I can demonstrate. It's the butterfly disc at the front, and there's the free spinner. So this is the cap. This gets screwed onto the face of the lock when you construct it, and as you can see it's got these little springs in it, three little teeth. I can take this part out. So there's the three little sprung arms that sit in the cap here. When you screw that cap onto the lock, these three springs actually load the pack up. Now, they put a little bit of spring tension on the whole of the disc pack. Not much, because if it was a lot, then it'd accelerate wear. But just a little bit. So what that means is, I can demonstrate with the key here, if I get out of the light. If I don't insert the key fully, so I've only got that key in, a tiny bit. So as you can see, as I'm moving that key, I've got it in maybe 2 discs worth. You can see the discs, well, all but 3 of the discs at the back are moving there when I wiggle the key. And the idea is, if I come along with a lockpick like this, if I'm trying to pick the lock, if I move a disc, so let's say I move this, I'm only, in the minute, my pick is only on 1 disc. But you can see as I wiggle that disc, all the discs either side of it move too. And that's that little wobble that we've got on the washer coming into effect now. So theoretically this should make the lock unpickable, right? Because if you move a disc, so see that one there, I've moved it into its gate position, that's the 1 cut. Is that right? Yeah, the 1 cut on an Abbas. So I've put that in position there, so if I then come onto its neighbour and try and move its neighbour into position, oops, all of a sudden I'm moving the other discs out of place. So the idea of this is you can never pick the lock. If you can't ever keep the discs in a consistent position, then it'll be impossible to pick the lock, right? So it does it on the deeper ones too, so you can see. You move one, it moves the others. But this might sound very good in theory, and it does, it sounds great. It's like, well, you know, this is we've made an unpickable lock here, guys. Awesome. But what Abbas failed to realise is that when you tension a lock, the sidebar here is physically pushing down into the disc pack, and I can simulate this by pushing down on my finger, which means when you rotate a disc into its gate, the binding disc, that sidebar will then sit in the gate a little bit, and the amount of pressure exerted by that sidebar pushing down into the binding disc's gate is exponentially larger than the amount of spring pressure being exerted by these 3 little leaf springs at the front of the lock. So what this does, it keeps that disc in position. So you move a disc into its position, the gate is under the sidebar. Then when you move on to the neighbouring disc to try and pick that, this effect of one disc moving the others no longer works, because that first one is being held in place by the sidebar. So you move the next disc, that goes into the gate, the sidebar keeps that there, and so on and so forth. So from a practically speaking perspective, this has absolutely zero effect on picking the lock. It sounds great in principle, but it is, in fact, absolutely useless. They might as well have not bothered. So I don't know how much money that patent cost them. There you can see the key with the sidebar dropping in. And I don't know how much time they spent designing it, and it sounded great in principle, etc, etc, but sadly this is one of Abbas's improvements that is completely, totally worthless. And that's that. Thank you.